technology. All right, it looks like we're now streaming live. Jeff, are you able to see if anyone's watching?
I don't know. I will tell you in a second.
Okay. Makes me feel
So
rather important.
I'm streaming it off of my laptop and I'm watching it on my desktop. We are definitely streaming. Let me make sure we have. What? I need to. All right, can I see if anyone's watching?
I also think we'll probably skip the Pledge of Allegiance portion. I'm not sure if everyone has a flag available or. So we'll probably go right to reading of the public. I only received one email for public comment. I'll read that into the record.
Great.
Oh, Mayor Rossi wants to join.
I can confirm via my other computer that we have both audio and video on YouTube.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
I still don't know if I could figure out if people are actually watching it or not.
Okay, I was just curious. All right, and we'll just call the meeting to order in about 2 minutes, just in case. I think Anne is the only one that I didn't hear from, but she may still be at work.
She's here.
Oh, no, Anne Heffernan.
Oh, I was gonna say, I see you. She's on the bottom of the screen. Hi, Ann.
Who
Hi, how
is
you doing, Rosie?
I'm
who is
good.
John Cruzil?
Hi.
Does anyone know who that is?
No.
John Krouzil.
No.
Maybe
No.
we don't make for the presentation, Chris John.
That wouldn't be Floyd. That's not anybody in his office.
No.
Keb, you want us to all mute unless we're speaking?
I'm going to mute everybody. Yeah, but if you want to mute yourself, that's fine too. Should I message this guy?
It couldn't hurt. Once you guys call the meeting to order, I'm gonna kill my camera, but I'll have my headphones on. If you need me, just yell.
I just messaged John Cruzil. I don't know who it is, but they're not messaging me back. So I may just remove them. Nope, he might be a Zoom hijacker, so I'm going to remove him. We're sure that's not anybody from Floyd's office, right? Because once I remove them, they won't be able to rejoin.
Is it worth just leaving them in the waiting room to see
Yeah, I
if
guess
they
I could leave them in the waiting room. True.
see if they call somebody?
Let me call Floyd Cell.
Okay. I'm just going to give Neil 1 minute before we start to make sure that's not Floyd. And then we can begin.
My grandma wants to know how to access it on YouTube.
Go to the Board of Ed website.
Okay.
Jim G. Who is Jim G?
You ready to go on or? All right. Oh, you're coming on your name because there's a name they don't recognize on here. Oh, okay. All right. That is you. All right. Thank you. Kev, that is from Floyd's office. John, it said it might come under John Krasil.
Yep. All right. Admitting him now. There's
Okay.
another one in here, Jim G. I don't know who that is.
He's for the Washington School Project.
Okay. I just admitted both of them. And Tammy again. Tammy's in here a few times.
All right, there's Floyd, John Krasil.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
All right.
Floyd.
And Jim is just added on.
It actually says 5 are watching on YouTube.
Oh, excellent.
Also, as a reminder, if you are not on video, you do not show on the live stream, like in Zoom, how it shows just your name. It
Mhm.
does not show that on the live stream. So if anyone who's not on video is going to talk, may or may not want to tell who you are before you move on.
Okay.
And as I call the meeting to order, I'm also going to do a roll call vote. And I'm going to say your name and just say present, just so we have a recording of the attendance with the AV recording. So that being said, it is 6:03 and I'm going to call the meeting of the West Haven Board of Education to order. I'm going to start the recording. Record to the cloud. Okay, I'm recording and we are also streaming live on YouTube for those who want to watch at home. I'm going to take a roll call attendance of the board members. Kevin Waterfield, Chairman, present. Patrick Egelum,
Present.
Andrea Talamelli,
Present.
Bob Guthrie,
Present.
Pat Libro,
Present.
Rosie Russo.
Present.
We have student representatives, Anthony Vendrella,
Present.
Mackenzie Gardner,
Present.
Brendan Carew.
Present.
We also have in attendance Superintendent Cavallaro, Assistant Superintendent Druzalowski, Mayor Rossi, Matt Cavallaro, and representatives who will be presenting during the reports section of the board meeting. Did I miss anybody?
Tawana Sheridan. who's
Oh,
the principal at Washington.
Principal Sheridan. For the public portion of the meeting, I received one email that I'm going to read into the record. It says, "Dear Board of Education members, as an educator, it has been extremely difficult to change our ways of teaching practically overnight. I have been impressed with work the teachers have put in. However, I do feel the district could be doing more to promote a sense of community. I'm extremely disappointed that my children have not seen their teachers' faces at all during this time period, other than the videos the school put together. I understand not all teachers are comfortable meeting students online, but it should be allowed if the teachers wish to do so. The meetings do not have to be live. Recordings are a great tool that can be used. With 3 children in the school system, they have not spoken to their teachers this entire time. They miss their teachers terribly and their teachers miss them. It is absolutely affecting the mental health of both parties. Several districts are allowing teachers to meet online or create recordings for their students, so why not West Haven? Is it the lack of training and resources? I'm very concerned that if the schools must continue distance learning next year, that my children will become disengaged in school as they won't feel connected to anyone. This has already been a challenge this year. I love my children's teachers and support them in everything they do. I want my children's school district to support the option of allowing children to meet with their teachers and peers online. It is an educational inequity, especially when other local districts are already implementing this practice. Thank you for your time, Victoria Halsey. And I believe that Tammy received her address into record as well. Oh, 97 Morgan Lane. So that being said, that was the only public comment that we received via email. I'm sure if anyone has any further comments, please feel free to email the superintendent, myself, or Tammy Mursko, who had their information in the meeting announcement with the email address. With that being said, public portion is closed at 6:06. Before I turn it over to the reports, I just wanted to say at the beginning of Teacher Appreciation Week, how much we appreciate the hard work that all of our teachers have done. You all received a packet of multiple fabulous work that all the schools have been doing, trying to adapt to this distance learning. And we just wanted to make sure that all the teachers were fully well aware how, as a board, I know I can speak for everyone, how impressed we are at all the hard work that they've been doing. And with that being said, I'm going to unmute. Oh, now my scroller is going to be slow. I'm sorry. Unmute Neil so he can do the administration status of schools.
Okay, we have two big reports this evening. The first one is a settlement agreement with our CWA union. That's our non-certified managers. It's a union of, I believe, 8 employees. It's a small union. They cover Chris Everone, Mike McGrath, our building supervisors, several executive secretaries, and one of our groundskeepers and our payroll person. This was a contract which took quite a bit of work to actually get settled, and we're glad we were able to settle it. We're actually prepared to go to arbitration. However, we did reach an agreement. I believe you all have a copy of the actual settlement as well as the contract. I'll turn it over to Floyd so he can just review it. However, it's a very similar contract to the ones that we have been settling. So with that, I'll turn it over to Floyd.
Okay, do I need to be unmuted or can you hear me?
You're good.
Okay. Thank you. I hope everybody and your families are doing well during this tough time. As Neil pointed out, this is a very small group. It is your smallest union, and it's kind of a amalgam of some supervisors and some higher end clerical folks. As Neil said, the group is down to about 8 or 9 bargaining unit members at this point. And frankly, for such a small group, we put a lot of energy into this contract. The effective date goes back to July of 2019. We started about a year ago with the process, and suffice it to say that we hit some bumps in the road, despite some fairly clear evidence and patterns over what other groups, including AFSCME, teachers and so forth, were getting. They were looking for something more than what the other groups had received, and of course had concerns over the whole issue of the health insurance plan and going to the state partnership plan and so forth. We initially were not successful, and so normally what would happen is once you hit August 1st, after a July 1st, 2019 expiration date, the state would put you in arbitration. We continued to talk. We weren't initially in arbitration, but then around the first of the year, making very little progress, I requested the state to move the process forward with arbitration, and that process began. We actually had one of these virtual meetings to initiate. No, I'm sorry, it was actually one of the last ones we had physically in the board offices to start the arbitration process, and we're scheduled to have some digital hearings coming up. I got involved with a lawyer from CWA's, Communication Workers of America's office in New York. He and I were able to have some good dialogue, and ultimately we reached a resolution. The terms are pretty straightforward. It's a 4-year contract going from July 1, 2019 through June 30th of 2023, 4 years. And the wages are 0% for 1920, 0% for 2021, 1% for 21-22, and then 2% for 22, 23. So consistent with the patterns that we've seen with the other groups. So that's on the health, on the terms. On the insurance side, we were able to convince them to do, again, what everybody else has already agreed to, which is to go to a high deductible health plan. And we provided the caveat saying if at some point in time, the decision is made that the board should move the employees to the state partnership plan, we would move them to that plan. So if and when that happens, it's set up to do that. The cost share, they're currently at 15%. They've been at 15% for several years. We are keeping them at 15% for the 2 years where they're getting a 0% increase. And then they will bump up to 17% in the third year, 18% in the fourth year. We also had a concession in the area of retiree health insurance. As I believe most, if not all of you guys know, retiree health insurance has become as difficult a problem as pensions have become, and are one of the primary factors. I think the mayor would probably acknowledge this. That's making it difficult for the city from a fiscal standpoint. And what we agreed to with this group was right now they get for pre-65 retirement, the board pays 100% of individual only, employee only health insurance. And they will now, if they don't retire by June 30th of 21, they will start paying 50% of that cost. If they retire before that date, essentially we're giving them an opportunity to get out if that makes sense for them. But that after that point in time, it'll be 50% for individual coverage. There was one modest enhancement, again, as a retirement incentive, if you would. Right now, you pay people out $20,000 if they've been with the district long enough and meet certain requirements, $10,000 the first year, $5,000 the second, $5,000 the third. We've bumped that up to 10, 10, and 10, only if they retire by June 30th of this year. I don't know how many people will take advantage of that, if anybody. If they do, frankly, the savings and the steps in the salary scale will pay for it. It's just a way of providing an incentive to folks who may be ready to go and looking for a little bit of an incentive. There were a couple other fairly minor changes to the contract, one of which was to conform the language to the Supreme Court's Janus decision, which essentially held that mandatory agency fees in lieu of union dues was unconstitutional. So we've made those changes, and I think that covers everything. So it's a contract that lines up with everything else that we have negotiated and done. It's a small group, and I'm happy to say we're able to settle it rather than go through arbitration, because I think we ended up about in the same place we would have in arbitration. And we stopped the bleeding in terms of the money for legal fees, for court reporters, for arbitrators. And with a small group, that becomes, harder to justify. But I think it's a good contract, and I certainly recommend it.
Neil, did you want to add anything to that?
No, as Floyd said, I'm glad it was settled. This is a small group, and one of the other reasons I thought that it was important or to allow that incentive was because it's this group and working with this group in some of the positions that are going to allow us to streamline and work with the city. For example, our payroll position. We're going to hire that person. That person is going to work with the Board of Ed and also assist the city. So as we get retirees, that gives us an opportunity to streamline and become more efficient. So I think that's another reason why we up the incentive for anybody who retires up to this year, because it does give us that opportunity. But again, like Floyd says, it falls right in line with the other contracts.
Okay. Do you want to open up to board member questions now or wait until after both presentations are done?
No, why don't you do this one now while Floyd
Okay.
is here, because if
And then he can,
there's not-
if he
can
has to
sign
go.
off.
Yeah. Okay. So does anyone from the board have any questions for Floyd on the contract? I'm looking at all of you. Oh, Pat does. Let me unmute Pat.
I had a quick question when I went over, and this is probably just, I probably know who this is, but you listed all the people. The person I don't know, who, we have a computer support specialist. Who is that? It says supervisor custodian, then computer support specialist.
You're looking at the salary schedule?
Yeah,
I think that was the old Maria, is it, what
oh,
was,
Giovannini.
yeah,
You,
All right,
you know
so-
what? I don't even know if it's that. I think that might even be like goes back to before we brought Business Network in. Remember, Floyd, we had a couple of non-certified people, John Lessandrini, Pat.
Okay,
If you,
so that's not a position we've got filled then, correct?
correct.
Okay, that's, I saw it and I just didn't know who that was and I thought I missed something in the interim. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Is that it?
That's it.
Anybody else? Excellent. Thank you very much, Floyd.
okay, guys, be safe.
Have a good night, Floyd. Thank you.
And we have one more presentation.
Yeah, this is a big presentation. We have, as you guys know, we've been talking about Washington School, the board's role in planning and getting a project like this approved is to approve the specifications, the educational specifications that we will submit to the Department of Administrative Services. The council will have to commit to the financing. But your job is to commit to the educational programming. For the presentation tonight, we have Michael Assasso. Most of you know Michael. He's been involved from the very beginning at the West Haven High School project. His firm won the RFP to help us design a preliminary plan for Washington. Jim Giuliano also assisted with actually writing the educational specifications. And Ken Carney is here as well, who, as you all know, chairs the building committee. Also, Twana is available to answer any questions. She's been a part of the planning, as naturally has Dr. Jezolowski. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael. And then again, we'll allow for comments from Twana, Jim, and Ken. And then the board can certainly ask any questions they want to. Mike? Mike's going to run through the presentation, so we're putting that on now. You know what, would it be better to mute me now? You know what, Kevin, mute me, so.
You can mute yourself there, though.
Oh, well, yeah, that's easy.
Muted.
Okay.
Can you guys see that screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Does he, is it,
It's
does he
split.
need to be unmuted to speak, or is Ken gonna speak? Who's
He's under
gonna
mine.
speak?
He's under mine.
Oh, okay, you're good. All right, thanks.
Let's see. Great. Good. All right, we're good to go? Yep. So, good evening, everyone. We, as of last week, completed the presentation that we submitted. I think Tammy distributed it to the board. This is a summary of the work that we've been doing over the past couple of months. It's included analysis of the existing facilities, and we've generated both analysis of the new building and renovation of the existing. Upon review and analysis of the specifications, and also with consideration given to the programmatic needs of the school in the area, we've developed a scheme that we think is probably most appropriately a renovation project. I'm sorry, a new project. I'm trying to advance the slides here. There we go. And just scroll down. Thank you, Chris. This these series of images are actually come from the GIS mapping. And I wanted to bring up this site plan to illustrate a point. This is actually demonstrating the existing facility. Where my cursor is located is the 3-story school that was built originally in 1909. There was an addition added, as you know, back in 1989. And that addition actually extends well south into the property, very close to a wetland boundary. And that boundary is actually demarked by the gray line and the diagonal lines around the perimeter. We had anecdotal reports from one of the faculty members while we were on site doing one of our surveys, indicating that the facility was constructed on piles, or at least some portion of it. So that suggests to us that the soil in this area is probably not suitable for future development. Continuing down, we also, during our analysis, generated several site plans. And the goal here was to try to take advantage of alternative means of parking and circulation on the site to address what is a fairly severe issue with congestion with Brown Street running here and Washington Avenue that runs north-south. We developed schemes that incorporate parking and or drives on the east side of the existing facility, expanded the parking that's existing in the rear, and also looked at possibly activating areas to the side of the existing gymnasium that has potential for playground area. Part of our study also included these following plans, which proposed a renovation project for the school. And this project actually suggested renovating the existing school as classroom spaces, which is really, I would say, the way the building is set up now, that's really the best we could achieve without significant structural modifications. It's really partitioned into 800 or 900 square foot classroom spaces for the most part. We had a new addition that accommodated much of the common spaces. What we would call common spaces are the media center, some of the classrooms and cafetorium and gymnasiums. And then some modification of the existing 1989 addition to accommodate classrooms for the pre-K, for the kindergarten classrooms. But as we were developing this scheme, we realized one of the salient problems that you have here is the absence of site to develop swing space. As I think Neil mentioned, we've been involved for a number of years on the high school project. And that project differs significantly from this one from the standpoint that it was overbuilt at the time we started the project. And so there was more than adequate space actually to maneuver students around as the various portions of the building were being constructed. In this case, we would have to introduce portables, and that's a significant additional cost in order to accommodate the programmatic needs while the building was under construction. So ultimately, we arrived at an alternative scheme, which is actually a new construction scheme. What you see is a very square-shaped building occupying much of the area that's currently parking lot, and it overlaps just slightly over the area that is part of the 1989 addition. In doing this, we can actually remove the original building and activate a much more extensive parent drop-off and parking on the west side of the site. The benefit here is that it draws a lot of traffic off of the highly congested Washington Avenue. This scheme also provides for additional parking to the south over the area that is currently occupied by the gym. And again, given the condition of the soils there, we thought that a parking and playground would probably be more suitable adjacent to a wetland than trying to do new construction. Moving into the floor plans, this is a two-story scheme. It's primarily a single story, and the image on the right-hand side of your screen actually shows the first floor. We have classroom spaces to the north with specialty spaces, primarily the art and this is the science space And those are intentionally adjacent to the media center.
The media center, like the high school, is already a focal area. So we've placed it prominently at the front and have suggested
We're getting a lot of feedback there.
science-based or
We've also incorporated a computer
Better.
lab and a resource room to the side. And then at the very southwest corner of the school is the main entrance. And you can see that that's actually being protected by an administration suite. So we have a secure entrance and control from the western side where we have parent drop-off. To the south, we have kindergarten and pre-K classrooms. And above those is a music classroom, which is separated by storage spaces to help increase the acoustic separation of the space. On the opposite side of a courtyard from the media center is our cafeteria space. And then building services occur to the rear and below. And then above the classroom space that we started with, there's additional classrooms for the upper grades, 3rd and 4th. And all of this occurs around a central courtyard, which is open to the gymnasium. And the idea is that the courtyard, in addition to providing light and air for the interior classroom spaces, also is a breakout space that allows for protected play, particularly for the pre-K students. This would be passive play versus not so much baseball or anything like that, but the gymnasium would be situated so that it could accommodate more active play like basketball in inclement weather. And we've included some images that were part of the submission. This gives you an idea of what the school might look like if you're at the corner of the intersection of Washington and Brown streets. The central space of the media center is enhanced with a dome. We were envisioning something like a mini planetarium of sorts that could occur here. Again, the main building is set back from Washington Street even further than it currently is, which affords the extra space that we need for parking and public drop-off and circulation. On the western side, the northern side of the site, along Brown Street, we've introduced a bus drop-off. And based on the quantity of student buses, we feel we can accommodate all of them easily in that boundary. It also affords us 2 points of entrance at arrival and dismissal from the bus that are protected and go directly to classrooms. So students aren't necessarily conveying all the way through the building in order to get to their spaces. This is a ground level image, again, from the corner of Washington with a predominant view along Brown Street. The view of the building from the main entrance off Washington. This gives you some ideas of the interior courtyard. The idea is the glass curtain wall that separates the gym brings the indoors out. This would be north facing, so we wouldn't get significant glare, but students inside the space would have a sense of the outdoor courtyard. And then we've taken advantage of the same glazing as it looks into the cafeteria, again, to bring light into the space. And the bottom image is actually a view of the pre-K classroom in the foreground and the kindergarten classrooms in the rear. And you'll see we have a separate entrance dedicated just to the pre-K, which would allow them exit to playground areas to the south. So that concludes our brief review of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point, or we could go into more detail if you wish.
I'm just gonna, Chris, if you'll stop that. Yep. If Chris could stop the presentation, then I could see everybody and see if they're asking any questions. Perfect. I'm going to start with myself. I just had one question about access to the gymnasium for activities other than during school hours. Is there a direct access, or do they have to come through any area of the school to get to the gym?
The intent would be to have them enter through the main entrance. There is a secondary entrance to the south that could accommodate parking in the southern lot. and access to the gymnasium. But it would have to be, in both cases, I think it would want to be controlled by staff.
Okay, because I know they use the gymnasium after hours for basketball and other activities there for local rec clubs. So I just wanted to make sure there wasn't it wasn't a long distance that they would have to travel through the school, perhaps unattended, through office space or classroom space to get to the gym.
The entrances that are afforded to the gymnasium are relatively close to exits
Perfect.
by design, actually, so for exiting as much as for access.
Great. I'm going to mute myself and look to my board members if anybody has any questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead, Rosie.
Okay, actually, before I ask my questions, are we just talking about what you presented or everything you sent in? You sent us home, because my questions are about the heated floors in the cafetorium. Is this an appropriate time to ask them?
What was the question?
Can I ask now about the insides, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, please. Yes.
Okay, my first question, when I was reading it, I see you put heated floors. I work in a school that has heated floors, and I have to tell you, it's horrible. Because what happens is when the heated floors are radiating all that heat, the classrooms get to be close to 90 degrees, even in the winter, and they're too hot for the kids anyways. And I am in a new facility. I know that other schools in New Haven, as they were doing them, had heated floors, and they haven't worked in those schools either, but I'm the newest school and they still don't work. So I was wondering, I don't know if that's the best use of money to put the heated floors, because I've seen so many problems with them firsthand.
Okay, we often introduce them in the lower grades because it does tend to be, when it is working, it is a very even and controllable type of heating system. But there's certainly other alternatives that we could incorporate for the facility. It doesn't have to be a heated floor.
I mean, I'm just giving you food for thought from someone who lives with it. I mean, people come to school, in my school in the wintertime, in sundresses because the heat gets like crazy from the floors. And plus if the kids want to sit on like the floor, sometimes the floors are too hot. So just as a heads up type of thing, I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback. We've utilized them in upper education as well. When we had overhangs or instances where we had portions of the floor that were exposed to space below. And we find that type of heating is usually the best because no matter how much insulation you put under the floor, it's very difficult to regulate the floor temperature. So, but yeah, no, there's no, at this phase of the project, this is conceptual in the truest sense of the word. We're trying to describe basically an envelope that accommodates a specific type of program. And some of the details like the heating and things are included in order to establish a basis of cost so that we can submit it along with an estimate. But it's certainly not set in stone at this point.
Okay. My other question's about the cafetorium. And the only concern I have with combining the CAF with the auditorium is that you're limited to when the lunch waves are. And I know I read that you would have 2 lunch waves because kindergarten and preschool would eat in their own classrooms, which I agree with. But, with social distancing now, I don't know if you're going to be putting that many kids in a lunch wave as the future goes on. And if we had presentations come in, again, they would be, tied down to whatever the lunch waves are. I mean, I don't know space-wise if you could do both. I just want to throw it out that I felt like, again, we would be tied to the lunch wave schedule for anything that they wanted to have for presentations and, guest speakers and whatever, the school wanted to do.
We looked at the project both as a cafetorium and a gymatorium. And I think that based on the information, and actually, I don't know if Twana is prepared to comment, but during the programming, we engaged Twana and Neil and Ann, on that and many other discussions. And I think the general consensus was that the type of presentation that they were giving was not really didn't necessarily merit a stage per se, but more of a performance platform. And so given that, we thought that the better use would be to incorporate the stage in the cafeteria. Part of it also too was in order to maintain that indoor-outdoor connection gymnasium, that would introduce a difficulty in terms of lighting control.
Yeah.
The cafeteria or cafetorium would give us a bit more ease in terms of covering the windows that face out of the building on just one side versus the really relatively large curtain wall on the north side. But that said, again, this is a very conceptual plan, and we could also look at an alternative that had a gymatorium versus a cafetorium if you thought that helped facilitate.
No, if I had to pick between those two, I would pick the cafetorium over the gymatorium, because I've seen schools that have the gym as their caf, and that makes it even worse for planning for specials and stuff. So if I had to pick, I would go with what you want. I mean, if I could have my druthers, I would like a caf, an auditorium, and a gymnasium. So, I mean, that's just me. My final question is, I also read you will put sinks in the classrooms for the younger grades. And I was wondering, with those sinks, there would be, I'm assuming, on scale for little people to reach them?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just, again, throwing out something from experience. I know now with sinks, we do the automatic, the kids just have to put their hands under. Those end up educationally being a problem, especially if you have preschoolers, because it's really fun for them to go by there and put their hands under, and, you know, to have, like, my sink in my classroom has 3 spouts. So 3 kids could be there, you know, with their hands. You know, I'm just throwing that out, that you might not want that type of thing, even though it's more sanitary for them to turn the water on that way. It does present a whole different set of problems for the classroom teacher.
Absolutely, yeah. There are foot pedal types that we could look at as another alternative. That's probably just as appealing to try to trigger that. But I guess the best solution would be one that would be monitored by the teacher in a more formal or traditional, I should say, faucet style. But yeah, we can certainly look at all those alternatives.
Because with the hand, you know, waving your hand under it so easy, like a kid can just walk by and they know they wave their hand under it, they're going to get the water going. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any other of the board members? I know Bob had submitted some via email that we got back on already. I don't see anybody waving their hand. So I think what looks good for questions.
Anyone want to know the cost of this thing?
Go ahead.
All right. So when we talk the cost of this building, we also have to keep in mind what it costs not to build the building. And there's a real cost associated with that. And we also know from our experience at the high school that the first costs that come out are generally higher than what we actually receive on the bid end of the project. We also have the opportunity to do value engineering. These are very conceptual, high-level plans, and they're also very high-level costs. We think all in, based on square footage of similar schools, and we had a professional estimator price this thing, we think we're in at $37 million. And that includes the tear down of the existing school. Now, when you run this through a very complicated formula, the city share over a 20-year period comes to just under $17 million. And if you look at previous bonding, you're looking at roughly $1.2 million a year for 20 years. But you're also looking at a school that's the oldest operating school in the state that we're aware of that needs a new roof. Our after reimbursement, our roof cost is $800,000. All the brick has to be sealed and repointed. There is no reimbursement for that. That's $1.5 million. The hardscape is a mess. We're looking at paving the entire complex. That's $2.5 million. We have no ADA compliance in the building at all. And at this point, you know, it hasn't been red flagged, but it's going to be at some point, to put an elevator in that building and make it ADA compliant, you're looking at another $2.5 million. The boilers are $500,000. The plumbing and electrical upgrades that we've identified in the capital project are $1 million. And the bathrooms, which have to be redone, are another $1 million. We think there's a savings of $150,000 a year in operations cost if you built a new building. So basically, over the next 10 years, you're looking at $10,450,000 to put out to maintain your existing building. And when you're done, the process starts all over again because the building was built in 1909. A new building, you get out of it for $17 million, and your operations go down. You end up with a brand new building, a better asset, so on and so forth. So those are the numbers.
I'm just still speechless that it was built in 1909.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
We actually did a search and we found Weathersfield had a school built, in the early 1800s, but only a little tiny portion of it still exists. This is the largest building in operation for a school that's as old as it is. Continuous use that we're aware of.
Thank you guys for the presentation. Does anybody else questions? Everybody's all good? Neil, did you want to add anything to that?
No, very briefly.
Certainly time along with
Your audio is terrible. Now you're very quiet.
Is your mic on? Check his mic, please.
Now?
That's a little bit better. Still quiet, but the feedback is gone.
No,
it's not. Maybe you could switch seats with Ken.
one of the big issues that has been an age-old problem there are the traffic conditions. When we were looking at the original book or the book of this 100th year anniversary, which I don't think is a badge of honor, by the way, there were no roads. So that's why there were no traffic problems when the school was built. However, that's not the case for dismissal. And Mike did send a crew over there to examine the traffic issues. It's something that is long overdue to be addressed. I want you to keep in mind that school right now is not handicap accessible. No child in that neighborhood, and it's truly one of our last neighborhood schools in the district, can go there, and that's an equity issue. I also think that it's important to keep in mind that school is in one of the more disadvantaged areas of town. And to me, kids who go to that school aren't given equal access to an equitable education as opposed to all of our other buildings. So I just think that those are all things to keep in mind. While this school is, roughly 110, 112 years old, it really doesn't owe us anything, and it's time to move on from it. And I think the sooner the better, because I think kids deserve better than what they're getting in that particular building.
Definitely, I definitely agree. All right, well, if there's no more questions, did you have anything else you wanted to add under administration? I think you said no, you just were gonna do a quick. Should I unmute him? Hold on.
You were unmuting me, so now I'm muted. Can you hear me now?
Hang on, let me mute Chris and unmute you. Let's see, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was your question, Kathy? I apologize. You want me to,
It's that, there's something going on with that spot there, Neil.
because we're hearing it before.
I don't know if you guys can hear that feedback on there. Am I the only one? Everyone else can hear it too, yeah. I don't know if you want to permanently swap seats with Chris. I just wanted to know if you had anything else to add under your report.
Like I said, I submitted a report to all of you today. Some of you may or may not read it. If you have, fine. What I thought was important, given the nature of this meeting, that's a first version, I would know I'm more glad that I did. If you have any questions regarding the report, we'll make this report a part of our record. And then if again, throughout the course of the week or next week, as you're reading it, if things come up, please just get in touch with me right away. A lot of the board members have been doing that. Again, given how we are, the only thing I want to I think our teachers and all our staff are doing an outstanding job. I think this is learning. I want to compliment you and your team for developing the curriculum. I particularly want to mention the work that Patty Fusco has done to get our work up online and to kind of redesign our website. It also has allowed me to get up live messages and letters that I've been trying to send home to people we understand with the distance learning. So
Neil, hang on a second again. I think I'm gonna have to leave Chris unmuted and you muted, and we'll pick up you on his mic. Did Chris unplug his mic? I can't unmute Chris. There it is. I think if you just talk louder, we can pick you up on Chris's mic. There's something wrong with your mic. It's just all feedback.
Let me move over.
We can hear you. We can hear you just fine on Chris's.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
So let me just add a couple of things. If you didn't hear me, I want to compliment all of our staff. Our teachers have done an outstanding job of delivering instruction under very difficult circumstances. I understand that we received that one comment from that particular parent. I can tell you, and I think all of you have seen online cases where we've been using videos to excite kids and to keep them engaged and to let teachers know that they think and they're caring for their students. I think our support staff has done a terrific job of reaching out to families, of letting them know that that we're here and what can we do to help. I can tell you examples of people who have our staff who have been able to get devices for families who lack them. We have teachers, we have counselors, administrators delivering and picking up packets of work on a daily basis. I think, again, given the short notice we put together under Ann's watch, a pretty good program that I'm very, very proud of. All of our staff, our paraprofessionals, our clerical staff, our counselors, our EL tutors have done a remarkable job of speaking to families who have a difficult time communicating with us. Our maintenance staff, has developed a system in a sheet where we're signing off and we're doing an outstanding job of keeping the buildings clean. I believe that in the next day or two, the governor is going to make an announcement as to whether or not we'll be returning for the year. If we are not returning, we are prepared to start our summer cleanup and start working on some additional projects for the buildings. Our administrators are already thinking in terms of what do we need to do for when we eventually return to school to keep the building safe and to keep kids social distancing and following all protocols. The offices, the main offices may look different at some of the schools. We've talked about, going back to some alternative schedules so that we can lessen the crowds in cafeterias. We're very much aware of the fact that when kids come back to school, they will have been away for months. And that's going to take some work on our parts to get kids used to coming back to school and getting them into routines. We know that there's a lot of work ahead of us. And again, we've started those discussions with our pupil personnel department, our administrators, our coordinators. So, when we're ready to return, I can assure you we'll be ready.
Thank you very much.
If I can, the
go ahead.
only other thing that I wanted to do was talk about, you've seen some of the articles in the paper about computers and donations and things like that. So I wanted to let you know where we stand technology-wise. That's in the report, but I'm not sure if it's been made clear prior to this. So we ordered 1,200 computers for next year based on the budget that the board passed back in January. We have an additional 200 Chromebooks, an additional 200 Chromebooks coming. That is from the donation that Yale University made to us. We are working with Amazon through the goodness of the president of Notre Dame High School and the Rotary Club. They reached out to Jeff Bezos, and we're expecting approximately 950 Fire tablets for Bailey Middle School. And we are also awaiting the delivery of 1,600 laptops. As an Alliance district, we were eligible for those computers, again, to talk and resolve some equity issues. However, with all of the donations, all of those donations that I mentioned and the computers that we ordered, I want everybody to keep in mind that we do not have them in hand, nor do we expect them in hand in the next, not till starting at the end of this month, and more likely most of the devices will be arriving over the summertime. There's just no supply out there. However, as soon as we get them, we will get them out to families in need of them if we are in session. The donation from Yale will allow us to actually give out the computers to families for them to keep. Rotary Club, by the way, is also donating several that will go directly to the families. The rest of the computers will be the property of the Board of Ed, and we will get them out, but we will monitor the usage and we will track them. I think the good news with the computers is that we will, and again, I mentioned this in the report, should we go out in the fall with a second wave, we will be prepared to make sure that every child in the school district has a way to access the internet and have a device to complete work. If we don't go out, we still have the computers and the devices. And, I believe that over the next couple of months, teachers are doing great things with the computers, some who never thought they would use them. And we will be gearing staff development and professional development, not only for distance learning, but for utilizing the technology more in the classroom. I think that's the most important message that I can leave you with tonight, other than, again, to say that I'm very, very proud of the work that we've done over the last 2 months, because, as like I say, 2 months ago, we didn't even know what distance learning was. And, I'll put our program up against anybody. With that, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But you'll have the report, and you can certainly feel free to look at the report. You're getting the reports from the schools as well. So again, anything that you have to ask, don't feel you need to ask it now. We just wanted to get you as much information as possible. Again, given the unique circumstance of this meeting being done through the computer.
I'm going to quickly offer the student representative reports because my dog's CDPS man outside. I apologize. Who wants to go first? Just raise your hand.
Hi,
All right.
I'm Lindsay. I'm a student rep. And first of all, we'd like to say thank you to all of our teachers and staff for all of their hard work adjusting so quickly to the new platform of learning. It was definitely a big change for all of us, and they did it so quickly. Second, we would like to say that our junior prom has been switched to senior kickoff formal, which is September 20th, if safe. And then I think Brendan's going to speak next.
Great. Thanks, Mac.
No problem.
All right, Brendan, you're all set.
A few of our senior class officers have met with administration and you, Kevin, did a video chat to discuss possible solutions for the senior activities that were unable to take place because of the pandemic.
I think you might be frozen there, Brendan.
Can you hear me?
I think you're a little frozen. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'll continue on and say what Brendan was meant to say. So Brendan said that senior class officers have met with administration via video chat to discuss the possible solutions for senior activities and when it's safe for them to take place. And then next, we'd like to discuss students and their workload. I know I've talked to a lot of my classmates and collaborating with work teammates and friends, and whether it's honor students or AP students or level 1 students, they all have stated that like their workload has increased throughout quarantine, but teachers are doing really good at being flexible, whether it's internet issues or computer technical issues, and they're very flexible when assignments are due if they're late, and I'm still getting full credit as well as others for late assignments, which is really good and helps us out during this stressful time in quarantine. And if anyone has any questions for Board of Ed student reps, feel free to ask. Thank you.
I just said,
You moved your seat back to the bad microphone again.
Have Mrs. Paredes, we should have some decisions that the class is going to make regarding graduation and some other things. Should be able to update you more as to what the class has decided as to what we're preparing to do for them over the next month or so. Did you get that?
I heard some of it about Mrs. Paredes, and Neil, if you don't want us to change, you can chat and we can figure it out.
I think he's
So
moving his
Anthony
seat again.
and-
There
and
we
Brendan
go.
both raised the issues, both raised that we are meeting and have been meeting. In fact, Kebby was part of our last discussion with the senior class. At the next Board of Ed meeting, we will have Mrs. Paredes here because we believe by then some decisions are going to be made as to what we'll be able to do for the seniors and what some of the plans are. We really wanted the seniors to drive the discussion and to actually make the decisions, since they're the ones who are feeling the pain and the consequences over this situation. So she will be here to make that report at the next board meeting.
Perfect.
I think Neil needs to go on the list for a new laptop. Just saying, with that microphone going on there. Next, we have board reports. I'm not sure if anybody has anything that they want to add. If you want to speak during this time, if you just put your hand up and I'll unmute you one at a time. Okay, Pat.
Mine's very quick. I just want to thank everybody for all their hard work. I can't even imagine that in March, All this happened when I was in Disney, so you people got to handle everything. But I cannot imagine that, March 16th, March 20th, the schools are closed, and now here we are, it's May 4th, and we're all online. I've talked to a lot of people who are pretty happy with what's going on. They have a lot of praise for the teachers and the students and all the ancillary staff who's reaching out to meet everyone. So I think it's appropriate that we're meeting tonight because it's Teacher Appreciation Week, but I think the thanks goes out to everyone, the custodial staff, the lunch people, the administrators, everybody, because everybody had to pull through. And I just applaud everyone's efforts, and I'm really thankful to be part of this community.
Thank you, Pat. I think Andrea had her hand up. Andrea?
I just want to say also that I think everyone has been wonderful as well. Administration, counselors, the teachers, and my son is in the high school. So we had some issues with him and his health, and they've all just been amazing and understanding. So I think they're doing a great job. I really do. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
Carrie, can I say something? Because you can't see me.
Yes, absolutely, Rosie.
Okay, thank you. I also would like to thank the staff, all staff, for everything that they've done for the kids. And I mean, it was really a quick study, and they did it phenomenal. I mean, they really hit it out of the park, and they've all done a great job. I was wondering, Neil, is there any way we can put those videos on the district website so people could see them? Neil, I don't know if you heard me. Can we put those videos on the district website? Because some people aren't on social media, and I know all the schools are putting them on their like Facebook pages and other Facebook pages.
Answer the question. Go ahead, Ann. She has her hand up.
Okay. I can't hear you.
Can't hear me. Patty's already, I believe, put some up there.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Because I think, people should see them. They're great. Every time I see one, I'm like, oh, that's even better. It's better. So the teachers and everybody's doing a great job, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of you, administrators, teachers, everybody.
Thank you.
And the same to you, Rosie.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And you as well, Pat. Bob, I unmuted you in case you wanted to add any comments in.
Nope, I think everyone's covered it.
You're good? Okay, thank you, Bob. Patrick, do you need me to unmute you?
Yeah, please,
okay, you're all set.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think I really want to thank the administration for the marvelous job that they have done. And also, with respect to the Washington School, I think it makes a lot of economic sense to have a new building than that old building. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Patrick. I just wanted to add two things. I got an email from Bailey Middle School. I don't think that we had included them in the packet that Neil had. I think that came in after the packet went out, but I will be happy to forward that all to you guys to see, so you can see what Bailey Middle School has been doing during this unfortunate situation. And I also just got a text message from Mrs. Paredes that I can share with you. She sent an email out to the teachers saying that she's getting a bit of feedback about work overload. Please be mindful of the amount of work that you're assigning. And it went on to talk about the workload assignment and how they would continue to work on that, and to make sure that the grading in Google Classroom is very time consuming. So that also could help with the eliminate some of that time spent on grading in Google Classroom if the assignments were consolidated or not as overloaded. So she is on that, student reps, just so you know. I think she must be watching on YouTube, so she sent that right over to me via text message and wanted me to pass that along to you guys. And I did mention at the beginning of the meeting about how proud I was of all of our staff, and that includes everyone from top to bottom. I know everybody is working really hard during this to make our students have a successful and healthy transition from classroom learning to distance learning. And I received another email from one of the paras who was taking some of the online education that's going on, who raved about how useful it was to her job description and how they would look forward to doing more of that in the future. I think the silver lining to all of this that has come about is that we may be able to look to different resources than we had traditionally looked at in the past. One of the things I know maybe we can think about going forward, depending on the state regulations, is snow days. I think that would probably be a really good thing to be able to mitigate the end of year date of end of school for a lot of families if we could do distance learning during snow days. Again, that'll all depend on legislation and ruling from folks other than ourselves, but I definitely think it can start the conversation, because I think we're not the only district that has been very successful, although biased that I think we're probably the most successful. I was really appreciative of the packet that got sent home with all of the numbers from all the different schools and the way they've been engaging their students. And the videos online are the best. I cried twice already today. Once from the Bailey Middle School, one that came out, especially one of the teachers was taking whipped cream out of a can from the fridge. I thought that was pretty humorous. That actually made me laugh out loud. And then Miss Morell from Kerrigan School did another rapping, singing video today, which I just thought was really, really hilarious. And I think the kids really get a kick out of all the stuff that they've been doing, the parades and the videos and it's just, as usual, our Westie community has pulled together once again and proven that once we set our mind to something, we can do anything we'd like. With that being said, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Somebody want to raise their Patrick, seconded by Andrea. All in favor, just raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Pat's abstaining, I think. I'm going to unmute you.
Right.
Pat's abstaining. Motion passes. Next we have D2 resignations. I'm going to actually unmute you guys just so we can have it on record, so I don't have to. Bob, Andrea, Rosie, where are you? There you are. Okay, since Rosie can't raise her hand, I'm going to ask if we do D2 resignations all inclusive. However, if anyone wants to speak on any of the folks listed here after I make the motion, we certainly can. You can offer your comments. D2 20-09, 20-10, and 20-11 resignations of Nadine Hull, Robin Cannon, and Lynn Leet. I hope I said that correctly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Anyone like to make a comment? Pat, go ahead.
I worked with all three. Well, all three of those people. Robin, I did not work with, but I know her. I worked with her on committees. They'll all be missed, and they were all great teachers and a great asset to us. So I wish them well in their retirement.
Agreed. I got a nice letter as well from Robin Cannon on offering her retirement letter. It was very nice to receive, and we wish them all well going forward. And I'm sure they will be missed in their respective schools. We have D3. I'd like to do all inclusive as well. They're new hires. 20-12, 20-13, 20-14, 20-15, and 20-16. We have Joni Amato for girls lacrosse head coach, Susan Twig for school nurse at Bailey, Michael Baracco for head coach of varsity girls tennis, Robin Vianney of head coach varsity girls swimming, and Weston Gambardella of JV baseball coach. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Pat? Second by Rosie.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously passed. And then under new business, the meat of the meeting. I'd like a motion to approve the Board of Education and CWA Local 1103 contract.
Motion.
Motion by Bob, seconded by Patrick.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. And then 20-18, approval of the educational specs for the Washington Elementary School. I want to recognize Bob to make the motion because he asked me in advance as a former Washington school student.
Yes, you should.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. Although I don't go back as far as 1909, long enough that I attended Washington School when you walked home for lunch. I'll go back to the days of Principal McLean, Mrs. Gagliardi, Mrs. Dwyer. And obviously, that school has served the district well, it served this town well, but the time is right, the finances are right. And it's pleasurable to make the motion to approve the educational specs for Washington School.
And I second it.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Patrick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to call for all in favor.
Aye. Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? I did that backwards. The online meeting's getting to me. Hearing none of those, you can see Greg in the background. Leaving my house. Motion passes unanimously. That is the end of the business part of the agenda. The rest is all informational. So unless anyone has anything else, we can ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Rosie, seconded by Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
No one ever opposes that. All right, great. Thank you guys. I really, really appreciate your patience with how the online meeting format went. It was a little tough to get used to. Hopefully we won't have to have another one, but we may. And if so, we can take everything we learned from tonight and use it for the next meeting and hopefully be even more organized than we were. I appreciate everyone's cooperation with keeping this running smoothly and organized. I have Neil on mute still. Did you want to add anything else, Neil, before we?
Kev, thanks. Well, if you can hear me.
Thank you, Kevin, for your patience. Help us out testing the process. And I think for the most part, it worked pretty well.
Also,
I want to thank Jeff Tagg and the Business Network for getting us up and running.
they really did a job
For us. So just hopefully we won't have
to have another one, but I'm not so sure it's going to be the case.
Jeff, if we do have to have another one, Jeff, if we do have to have another one, Neil definitely needs to have a computer checkup there. And I was remiss in thanking Jeff and Tammy for all the testing and practicing we did to get this meeting working. I appreciate both of you. Thank you so much.
No problem at all.
All right, I think we're done. I'm going to hit stop recording.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you guys very much. Stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
Live streaming is stopping.